Hello. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for the 16th day of March. Your readers today are Tom Travers and
Tom Scanlon.
This first article is about a mother who had a serious loss. The headline says, "Mother turns her unthinkable loss into advocacy." Rachel Goldberg Pollen's resolve is a lifeline for worlds bereaved. This is an article by Romina Ruiz Goriena. Maybe for the first time since her son's death, Rachel Goldberg Pollen can grieve, or so she told her therapist. But how would that happen? Goldberg Pollen imagines herself in a grocery store in the central aisle. She spot a box of Cap'n Crunch on the shelf, her son's favorite cereal, the peanut butter kind. That would trigger some kind of flashback, and that's when, unprompted, she'll fall screaming onto the floor of Kroger. Her scene of grieving plays out that way. Goldberg Pollen deadpans to today, USA Today, because that's what happens on TV. The delivery is vintage Goldberg Pollen. That's what her friends say, but she hasn't made it to the grocery store yet. Going out in public is too hard. People easily recognize her petite frame, even under the hat, parka, and big glasses. After her son's abduction, Rachel Goldberg Pollen was thrust into the global spotlight, becoming a powerful advocate for hostages and their families. "I'm still very much this symbol of pain and a trigger for a lot of people's trauma," Goldberg Pollen says. She is the embodiment of every mother's worst nightmare, losing a child. Except she didn't simply lose her son, Hirsch Goldberg Pollen. He was taken, tortured, maimed. He was held captive by Hamas for 328 days in underground tunnels in the Gaza Strip after the militant group assaulted Israel on October 7th, 2023. Before her 23-year-old son could be rescued, he was executed. Her commitment to save as many of the 251 hostages as possible from the throes of Hamas captivity never wavered, even after Hirsch was returned to her in a body bag. Goldberg Pollen, 56 years old, became one of the most recognizable advocates born of the more than 2-year Israel-Hamas war. Goldberg Pollen tallied each day of the hostages' detention. She wrote the number on a piece of a masking tape for all to see, and we counted with her. And then there's a picture of Mom here. She took planes, she made speeches, she mixed with global elites in Davos, Switzerland. On day 47, she had an audience with Pope Francis. On day 320, she addressed the Democratic National Convention. She traveled to 4 continents. She met with world leaders, even some who scared her in the undisclosed local actions. One time she was so afraid, she wrote down part of Psalm 118, "God is with me, I shall not fear." She did this on a piece of paper and stuffed it into her bra. Rachel continues to get about 100 notes a day from people in pain who are reaching out, she says. She first spoke to me on day 694. She sat for an interview on a bench in New York Central's Park on day 703. That's where I learned that while necessity might have catapulted Goldberg-Pollen into the geopolitical stage, her deepest impact was burgeoning at a much more intimate level. Quietly, thousands of people got in touch. First came the emails, the one-liners on Facebook Messenger. Strangers pinged her on WhatsApp. The messages came from Idaho, Fiji, South America, Jews, Christians, and Muslims. Some sent heart emojis or thinking of you. Children and siblings to suicide and overdose. Not all had lost someone, but all were in pain. The numbers were vary, but the notes kept on coming. Some days it's 93 days. It's 112, Goldberg-Pollen says, but it's always hovering right around 100. A quick multiplication reveals that 84,000 or so messages, quote, some people are writing about losing a parent or a partner or a sibling or a best friend or a child, she says. And they're from all different walks of life and also from all the faiths, which I find very, very amazing and uniting. The missives continued even past January 26, 2026, day 843, when the remains of the final hostage, Ryan Gavi, were returned to his family, completing the first phase of a ceasefire agreement. That night, Goldberg-Pollen noticed she breathed differently. The next morning, for the first time in more than 2 years, she did not put a piece of masking tape marked with a number counting the days the war's over or hurt. She would begin to move on, but not from Goldberg-Pollen. Messages haven't stopped coming in. On a recent Friday, there were 103. Schools and nonprofits keep asking her and her husband, John, to speak. And I keep speaking, and I keep thinking, why? Why should I? Goldberg-Pollen asks over Zoom from her Jerusalem apartment. The story is over. Hirsch's story is tragically over. The hostage story for me is over, so it's not clear for me. I'm not a story of resilience, and I'm not a story of hope. Her Orthodox Jewish observance, which brings order to her life through prayer, Torah study, keeping kosher, and avoiding driving and using electronics on the Sabbath. These help her survive what she sees as a story of grief. She's a narrative this lifelong educator born in Chicago shares over and over. With a mix of anecdotes, wisdom, and talk of spirituality, she gives people language to know what they are experiencing. She mothers the bereaved, for who hasn't known what it's like to experience loss? In a society that expects grief to eventually go away, like in a Hallmark movie, Goldberg-Pollen has a revolutionary proposition, namely to live with it forever. Her heart breaks open, creating a prism that teaches us something about her, about really. It's just they're teaching us something about ourselves. And in a time of political silos, echo chambers that are served as the catch of the day, polished influencer feeds, and a cacophony of quotes to swipe endlessly, her cadence, her analogies, her stories remind us of what it's like to be a human. She once found herself trying to explain grief to a group of college students. How does it feel? They asked. Always the teacher. She didn't answer outright. She walked them through an exercise. Everybody thinks of someone, she told them. It could be your boyfriend. It could be your mother. It could be your best friend, your dog, whoever. She paused. Now they are not in this room. Quote, do you not love them anymore, she asks. Quote, when it's someone who's so integral to your day-to-day well-being, how are you going to make that a healthy way to loving them and missing them where it's not breaking us? We might get some insight into her and an answer in her memoir, quote, When We See You Again, which will be published April 21st. Goldberg-Paulin insists she is not a role model, but rather a really regular person, caught up in a horrible situation. The vigil she kept and the efforts she made, she says, were not unusual. Quote, it's what your mother would have done for you, and it's what my mother would have done for me, she tells the group. Looking straight into the camera, her realness is what draws us to her, what helps us understand her pain and ours. Quote, it's very affirming that it is pain that is so universal, Goldberg-Paulin says. It's really symbolic because I think that they think they're reaching out for help and they're actually really helping me. So there's this wave-like experience where we meet in the middle. Our time is up. The Sabbath is upon us, and she is powering down. Before I go, she speaks. She speaks again about Hirsch, because she lost him. He will never feel this pain. Then she returns to something we chatted about during our last conversation more than 100 days ago. Has your son decided where he'll go to college in the fall, she asks. Has your son, not mine. She always shares her boy and always checks in on mine, a testament to the unending power of a mother's love, even my own. It's very affirming when it is pain that is so universal. It's really symbolic because I think that they think they're reaching out for help, and they're really actually helping me. So there's this wave-like experience where we meet in the middle. And then there's a little bit of about her. It says there's a book writing Rachel Goldberg Payne. It's about the Woman of the Year subject. Today's Woman of the Year is a recognition of women who have made a significant impact in their communities and across the country. Meet this year's honorees at Women of the Year, usatoday.com. That's the end of the article.
The next article is titled, Taking Concern from ER to Ballot. Doctors run for office to fight Maha agenda. Soon after Congress voted to cut Medicaid and food assistance for millions of people in the Republican tax and spending bill last summer, Dr. Thomas Fisher headed to the emergency room for his regular shift. The ER was already in chaos. There were people in every room. There were people in the hallway. There were people who had been waiting to be admitted. And that's just not my ER. That's every ER, he told USA Today. It's one thing to accept, as I do, that there's a certain amount of suffering in life, and that's just the human condition. It's another thing to accept that people in government are making that worse intentionally. He felt he had to do something in response to the vote. Run for public office. Fisher, age 51, is now competing with more than a dozen Democrats in the March 17th primary for a chance to represent Chicago's downtown and west side in Congress. Congress is already home to doctors, nurses, and scientists, both Republicans and Democrats. According to the Congressional Research Service's Biennial Report 2025, the Senate had 4 physicians and 1 optometrist. The House had 16 physicians and 4 dentists. The House also included 1 psychologist, 2 pharmacists, 4 nurses, and 1 emergency medical technician. But 1 year into the tenure of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services and the rise of the Make America Healthy Again movement, scientists and doctors like Fisher are stepping into politics, motivated by concern over changes to health policy, anti-science movements, and cuts to social programs. They're hoping they can slow down or stop new policies, modifying vaccination timetables, limiting common pain medications for autism, and changing federal dietary guidelines. The wheels have come off. We've undermined the fundamental tenets of health care, of science, and so I feel called to this moment to public service, Fisher said. I think I can speak with moral clarity. Several of them are running in toss-up districts that could determine which party controls Congress for the rest of President Donald Trump's second term and how much of his agenda can move forward. Advocacy groups, including the Progressive Political Action Committee 314 Action, are pushing for Democratic doctors and scientists to step into the ring at all levels of government. As Trump and RFK Jr. led us down a dangerous anti-science path, Americans are searching for who they can trust, and doctors and scientists bring something Washington desperately needs right now: credibility rooted in evidence and real-world experience. 314 Action President Shaughnessy Naughton said in a statement. HHS Press Secretary Emily Hillard said in a statement that Americans have spent decades in medical status quo. Secretary Kennedy is the one who's finally fixing it. Many of the voices now criticize reform were part of that system as outcomes worsened, she said. Secretary Kennedy focused on transparency, informed consent, and patient choice about restoring trust, not undermining public health. Most of the elected healthcare professionals in Congress are Republicans, and several Republican candidates are running as well. House Republicans are delivering real results by advancing affordable, healthy, common-sense nutrition policies that Americans overwhelmingly support. National Republican Congressional Committee spokesperson Mike Marinello said in a statement. The polling is clear, and a growing roster of strong Republican incumbents and candidates are leading the charge. Democrats, meanwhile, are left with nothing but empty talking points and the same radical agenda voters keep rejecting. Janet Bames, a famous physician and California Assembly member, said she wouldn't have run for Congress before Republican Representative David Valadao voted for the Republican tax and spending law last summer. The law, which Valadao initially pledged not to support, is expecting to strip health insurance from millions of low-income Californians, including new 290,000 residents in his rural farming Central Valley district, according to the California Budget and Policy Center. Baines, age 40, only serves Medicaid patients in her Delano, California clinic, said Valadao's change of mind surprised her. In the Valley, your word is your bond. Going back on your word is the biggest slap in the face that you can give to a community, especially a vulnerable community like this, she said. I had full faith that he would do the right thing and stand up for the district, but he didn't. Valadao said in a statement after the bill passed that he still had concerns about some of the changes to Medicaid and appreciated the new created fund meant to help the rural hospitals that would be hit disproportionately hard. No piece of legislation is perfect, but this bill ultimately reflects the priorities of CA 22, lower taxes, stronger farms, better infrastructure, and a commitment to protecting access to health care for the Valley residents, he said. His campaign did not respond to a request for a new comment. Baines, who faces 3 other Democrats in Valadao in California, June 2nd primary, wants to see a rural Medicaid-serving doctor's voice in Congress. California is the top 2 primary, where the 2 candidates who received the most votes in the primary advanced to the general election, regardless of party. He had a very different perception of what needs to be done to strengthen health care, she said. A lot of times people have ideas of health care, But if you don't have the expert that's actually worked in those areas that need it most, you're going to create a problem. You're not going to create a problem that's effective. Megan O'Rourke, age 46, of Blairstown, New Jersey, said she knew quickly after Trump took office and started making changes she was not going to be able to stay on as a civil worker focused on food security and climate change at the U.S. Department of Agriculture. It's clear to me I was not going to follow orders and be complicit to the things they wanted me to do. And so I did what I thought was the most strategic thing I could do in my capacity, which was resign and run to take him down, O'Rourke said. O'Rourke had a doctorate in ecology, said that running for Congress was one of the most strategic ways that we can push back against this presidency and the executive overreach and restore checks and balances and uphold my oath to the Constitution as a civil servant was to run for office in a flippable seat, which was my hometown, she said. O'Rourke is one of 8 Democrats competing in the June 2nd primary to represent Central New Jersey's 7th District. Emily Gregory, age 40, of Jupiter, Florida, has a master's in public health and health policy management. She watched with concern over the past few years as state lawmakers removed vaccine mandates, downplayed the health threats posed by forever chemicals, and made changes to whether drinking water should be fluorinated. She's more concerned about the state's water quality than some of Kennedy's supporter concerns, like which food dyes can be used. Kennedy's pledged to remove certain synthetic dyes from the food supply by the end of 2026. I agree that red food dyes are a concern, but my children don't have M&Ms every day, Gregory said. They do drink water every day, and they drink a lot of water every day. We have to think about scale. So we're going to put our energies into making something safe. Clean drinking water void of PFAs and forever chemicals is far more important that it's going to impact our children and everyone's health outcomes, so much more than red food dye, number 5. Florida Democrats have outperformed Republicans this year, and Gregory decided to run for an open, formerly Republican-held seat in the state legislature for a district that includes Trump's home at Mar-a-Lago. She won the Democratic primary with 88% of the vote. The special election is March 24th. I want to be a part of bringing data and science back to the legislature, she said. Pediatrician in California State Senator Richard Pan has already faced off with Kennedy, who attacked Pan's 2015 legislation to make it harder for parents to opt out of school vaccine requirements by saying vaccines were causing autism. Holocaust. Kennedy later apologized for using the word in that context. Pam, age 60, of Sacramento, said Kennedy was evasive and accused him of lying during an August appearance for the Senate Finance Committee on Trump's 2026 health care agenda. It's a tipping point in his decision to run, he said. He's in D.C. I need to go to D.C., take him on as well as on behalf of the people. Keep people safe, keep our kids safe, Pan said. Pan is one of 5 Democrats running for the seat in the June 2nd primary, which includes 3 Republicans and sitting U.S. Representative Kevin Kiley, who recently announced he would run as an independent rather than a Republican. Pan said Kennedy has transformed an agency that used to be one of the most accurate sources of American medical scientific information to a major source of disinformation. He urged other doctors to join him in running for public office. This moment calls on people like physicians and scientists to step up, because we're not going to be able to do it from our clinics or from our hospitals, from our operating rooms, from our labs, Pam said. We're watching the fruits of our work being undermined by policy decisions by people who aren't qualified, and frankly, seems like they're making decisions based on their own personal gain, whether it's political or financial or both, instead of what's best for American people.
Okay, the last article for this section is, Hey, the last living monkey has a story to tell. What monkey? Well, actually, it's Mickey Dolenz. Mickey Dolenz was a member of the Monkees. So the way Mickey Dolenz sees it, the Monkees' success was neither predictable nor replicable. You can't reduce it. You can't take it apart, he says of the beloved made-for-TV band, soon to turn 60. You can't take Star Trek and say it was just Leonard Nimoy's ears. It was William Shatner. It was the writing. You can't do that. To my mind, what happens is you take your best shot, and at some point, the whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts. Dolenz, who turned 81 March 8th, is celebrating his late bandmates Davy Jones, Michael Nesmith, and Peter Tork with his ongoing hit-packed 60 Years of the Monkees tour. A September 12th stop at Los Angeles marked the 1966 premiere date of the innovative NBC sitcom. In 3 hours of pre-birthday conversation with USA Today, Dolenz offers an in-depth oral history of the Monkees. And it's been edited, so he's not going to go all the way through it. There's a picture of the 4 Monkees, and they were never supposed to be the American Beatles. It was a sitcom about this imaginary group that wanted to be famous, says Dolenz, pointing out that the TV show's co-creator, Bob Rafelson, came up with the concept of the Monkees before the Beatles exploded. It was about the struggle for success, trying to get a gig, trying to get an agent, trying to get a record deal. So it spoke to all those kids that were in their bedrooms, garages, and living rooms, rehearsing and trying to be famous, which does beg the question of how we could afford a Malibu beach house, but that's Hollywood for you. He says, there were no we. I vaguely remember Davy. He'd been on the Broadway. He'd been in English television. He had recorded it. I had it too. We knew the process, and we clicked. I don't remember Mike and Peter at all until I met them at a wardrobe fitting. I was enrolled at L.A. Trade, a technical college. As an architectural student, I had been a child star. After Circus Boy, I went back to normal high school. My parents kind of took me out of the business, which was a very smart move. That post-child star thing is where, excuse my French, you get effed up. Every summer, I would do my day jobs on TV. That was spending money. You had to be able to sing and play to get the audition. I go in and I notice immediately this laid back and cool. I thought I would like to get this one. I didn't quit school because I knew that 99 out of 100 pilots did not sell. They already knew how to sing and play instruments, but improv was entirely new. He goes on to say, I laugh to this day when I see the show. That was some funny stuff. The Monkees pilot fell in place after they ditched father figure. In the pilot, there was a man who owned the record store and was our manager. He would go to the store or rather we would go to the store and ask him for advice. And the pilot, I understood, not well among the kids. So they took out the manager. We were masters of our own destiny, and we didn't need my favorite uncle. And we were still nice guys, and we still helped little old ladies cross the street. And bold print says, being a monkey was an incredible amount of work. Filming a TV series is about 10 hours a day. In the 60s, it felt like a lot of money that we were earning. In the original days, we were making $400 a week for everything, recording, acting, and the shows. The Monkees' archetypes were not accidental. Clearly, they were looking for charisma and chemistry, and that's not something you can produce in the scientific sense. It's more of a gut, emotional thing. It wasn't, this person sucks and this person is great. It was more, who works together? What is the chemistry all about? So then he goes on to talk about how a couple of them cut vocal records. Somewhere along the line, somebody must have said my voice was more appropriate for some pop rock stuff. And he goes on and on and on and says a lot of the good things about the Monkees. But now the Monkees are no more, and it's on for newer horizons.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 30 minutes after the hour. This means we move to the money section of USA Today. And our first article is titled Care Inflation. Rising costs are breaking the middle class. Home care and assisted living costs for older adults and people with disabilities have surged over the past 5 years, straining affordability for middle-class families who struggle to pick up the tab, AARP said in a March 12th report. A report said the cost of the most common type of long-term services, home care and assisted living services, surged nearly 50% from 2019 through 2024, far outpacing median income growth of 22% for senior households. Costs of other long-term services also grew more quickly than income for households that must pay for this care without public aid. Adult day service costs jumped 33%. Nursing home care costs increased up to 25%, AARP said. Report details rising cost of long-term services and supports, a broad category that describes supportive care such as eating, bathing, and dressing people might need because of aging, illness, or disability. Authors say the report underscores the affordability crisis millions of families are dealing with as the cost of service for older adults and people with disabilities exceeds families' means to afford them. When this hits, it hits families harder than they expect and at a higher cost, said Alan Weil, director of AARP's Public Policy Institute. More than half of adults who turn 65 between 2021 and 2025 will need long-term care services in their lifetime, according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. But families often are prepared to handle costs of caring for aging adults, Weil said. An AARP survey in 2022 said about half of the adults aged 50 or older mistakenly believe Medicare, the federal health insurance program for adults 65 and older, covers care in a nursing home or home care from a home health aide. While Medicare doesn't cover such costs, Medicaid, the federal state health program for low-income families, does pay for nursing. An AARP survey in 2022 said about half the adults in age 50 mistakenly believe Medicare, the federal health insurance program for adults 65 and over, covers care in nursing homes or care from a home health aide. But for middle-income families who don't qualify for Medicaid, costs can rise quickly. About 1 in 7 older adults had out-of-pocket costs that exceeded $100,000 in 2020, AARP said. For families who can't afford to hire home health assistants, the burden of providing care often falls on unpaid caregivers. These caregivers, often family members, contribute about $600 billion in care in 2021. The surge in costs over the 5 years our study followed a decade of more modest caregiving expense increases. States and federal government greatly expanded Medicaid assistance to long-term care services during the COVID-19 pandemic, according to long-term care experts not affiliated with AARP. The public support was meant to address a shortage of workers at nursing homes and home care settings during the worst days of COVID-19. Other factors included minimum wage hikes that raised expenses for lower wage workers, including nursing home employees and home health aides. While the more generous Medicaid payments waned at the end of the pandemic, Trump administration's immigration crackdowns that pressured nursing homes and home health agencies that rely on immigrant labor, said Mark Cohen, professor of gerontology and co-director of Leading Age LTSS Center at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. The people who care for our most vulnerable citizens are being shut out of the system, Cohen said. Cohen said rising nursing home and home health aid costs often land disproportionately on people who pay for their own care. That's because Medicaid often reimburses care at lower rates. Providers seek to offset the lower public payments by shifting costs to consumers who pay their own way. Cohen said it's created a financial squeeze on middle-class families. Some states, such as California, are studying how to help families who earn too much to qualify for Medicaid, but not enough to afford living expenses and the rising cost of long-term care.
Can you get me back to the money section?
If they had a long-term care need, they would be up the creek without a paddle, Cohen said. Pressure on the family support is growing. Average annual costs for care range from $26,000 for adult day services to more than $127,000 for a private nursing home, AARP said. These costs can be difficult to manage for older adults who live on an average Social Security benefit of $23,700 per year and average annual household income of nearly $60,000. But it also shows the cost of services vary widely by state. Home health aid services range from $34,320 in Louisiana to $68,640 in South Carolina. The report also measures affordability, taking into account how much a service costs and an average household income. By that measure, home health aids are most affordable in Maryland and least affordable in Maine. Wells said the purpose of the report is to detail home long-term care services become much less affordable as costs have risen. And that's a typographical error on the newspaper here. It's mush instead of must. He called it a breaking point for families and caregivers. It's really the crisis this report shines light on, Wells said. And I think we have to be honest that part of breaking point is people are going to go without services.
Any one of the money section. Anyone in the money section. I get it. This is one to read. That's yours. Sorry for the delay. This next article in the money section is 401k hardship. Withdrawals are on the rise. 6% of retirement savers took it, Vanguard said. This is an article by Danielle Davis. More Americans are using 401k retirement accounts as personal ATMs. Last year, 6% of Vanguard retirement savers took hardship withdrawals from their 401k accounts. An all-time high. Hardship distribution rates have risen dramatically in recent years, up from 1.7 in 2020. Hardship withdrawals have spiked among Fidelity retirement savers as well. On the whole, American companies and their employees are doing a better job of saving for retirement. For example, 61% of Vanguard retirement plans now automatically enroll new workers in 401ks, up from 54% in 2020. Auto-enrollment trends to raise saving rates. The rise in hardship withdrawals suggests, however, that some retirement savers are financially fragile, living paycheck to paycheck and unable to amass enough savings outside their retirement accounts to cover an emergency is bad news. Quote, it's still a small number, 6%, but it is something that is worth attention, said David Stinnett, head of strategic retirement consulting at Vanguard. He said the median hardship withdrawal in 2025 totaled $1,900. The most common reasons for the withdrawals were to prevent foreclosures or evictions. It's easier than ever, says the article, than ever to tap your 401k. Federal law has become gradually more permissive in allowing Americans to raid their retirement accounts, which may be one reason hardship withdrawals are rising. Since 2024, for example, many retirement savers have been permitted to withdraw up to $1,000 a year to cover an urgent expense, and the saver gets to define what accounts as an emergency. But those transactions come at a cost, and financial experts say retirement savers should generally tap the funds only as a last resort. Raiding your 401k for quick cash essentially robs your future yourself of returns, said Caleb Silver, editor-in-chief of Investatopia. The point of the retirement account is to build a pool of savings to get through the years when you're no longer working. The 401k design depends on compounding. If you start saving young and invest in stocks and bonds, your savings can multiply geometrically as those investments balloon in value over time. If you raid your retirement account too soon, you could lose not just the money you withdraw, but also the returns that investments might have earned in the future. Taking early withdrawals can stunt the long-term growth and compounding of retirement savings, and down the road, they will need that money when they retire. So says Catherine Collinson, CEO of the nonprofit Transamerica Center for Retirement Studies. Perhaps the biggest downside to raiding a retirement account is this: if you withdraw the money before the age 59 and a half, as a general rule, you must pay a 10% IRS penalty on the amount, which is also taxed as income. And there are many exceptions to that rule. Hardship withdrawals, for example, don't face the 10% tax penalty if they're done properly. Many other life events and emergencies qualify for early withdrawals from 401k or IRA plans. Some of the hardship 401k withdrawals include some plans, though not all, allow retirement savers to make hardship withdrawals without tax penalties. Rules for hardship withdrawals have loosened in recent years, starting in 2024. You could cash out as much as $1,000 to cover an urgent need. Under the new rules, you can make one hardship withdrawal a year. You cannot make another one for 3 years. This is unless you pay the money or make new contributions to cover the balance. Other IRS rules allow hardship withdrawal greater than $1,000 for 401ks, but the rules are stricter. Larger hardship distributions must serve an immediate and heavy financial need and be limited to the amount necessary to satisfy that need. Your employer determines whether your need is immediate and heavy. Here too, the IRS offers some guidance. A consumer purchase such as a television or RV generally would not apply. You want to go give all these or not? No.
Keep going.
There are some qualified early withdrawals. Retirement savers are generally allowed to make early withdrawals from 401k accounts An IRA without tax penalties for several scenarios, a mix of financial emergencies and life events. Some of these are birth or adoption costs with a limit of $5,000 per child, death or total or permanent disability, disaster recovery is a limit of $22,000, medical expenses, home purchases, 401k loans. With a 401k loan, you borrow money from your account and repay yourself over time. And the last paragraph, you generally must pay the loan within 5 years and make payments at least quarterly. You may get longer than 5 years if the loan went well toward your home. One advantage of a 401k loan, Fidelity reports, is that you pay no tax or penalties on the money. There's interest, but you pay it yourself. One downside, a caution, if you leave your job, you may have to repay the loan in a hurry.
Our next article is titled, One Target Boycott Ends with No Change. What's this about? A year-long national consumer boycott of Target over its diversity, equity, and inclusion rollbacks is ending without any changes in the retail giant's policy. One of the boycott's leaders told USA Today he made the decision after productive conversations with the retail giant and its CEO, Michael Fidelecki. Pastor Jamal Harris Bryant, the senior pastor at New Birth Missionary Baptist Church outside Atlanta, said in an exclusive interview that the boycott made significant progress and he would continue to hold Target accountable to black shoppers, employees, and communities. But in materials Bryant's organization provided USA Today, Target did not offer concessions or reverse changes the company made to its DEI and other policies after President Donald Trump took office in January 2025. There are no new commitments, no reversals, Ebony Porter Ike, a spokesperson for Bryant, confirmed. Bryant said he's satisfied the Target remains committed to the DEI even as Second Nation national boycott vowed to continue its protests. They have a program called Belonging, which gives access to everybody, not just for entry-level positions, but to be able to ascend into C-suites, told USA Today. It's essential DEI as I read it. It's the exact same thing. In a statement to USA Today, Target said it was more committed than ever to create growth opportunities for all. We're pleased to be moving forward. We'll continue to show up as trusted neighbors while delivering results for our team members, guests in the more than 2,000 communities in which we serve, the company said in an email statement. Because when those communities thrive, so do we. The leaders of the first declared national boycott held a news conference in front of Target's Minneapolis headquarters on March 11th to distance themselves from Bryant's announcement, pledged that they would continue shunning the company till their demands are met, particularly on DEI. How can you call if a boycott focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion have no results to show for it? That's a slap in the face for the people, said Nicomail Levy Armstrong, founder of the Racial Justice Network. But who's standing here? People who actually call the boycott, the people who are actually willing to hold this company accountable and are not willing to compromise with Target Corporation till they do the right thing by the people of Minnesota and the people across this nation. Armstrong called on shoppers to continue to avoid Target. This Target boycott is not over, she said. Once one of the loudest corporate supporters of Black America, Target joined a broad retreat from DEI policies shortly after Trump issued a series of executive orders aimed at eliminating illegal DEI, that illegal DEI in quotes, in the federal government and the private sector. Target backtracked on efforts to boost representation of black employees and support black-owned suppliers, saying they need to stay in step with the evolving external landscape. Racial equity emerged as a top priority for the retail giant after the 2020 killing of George Floyd a few miles from its Minneapolis headquarters, including a pledge to increase the number of black employees across the company by 20%. Another program focused on routing more of Target's business to black suppliers. At the time, Target said it remained committed to create a sense of belonging for its employees and customers through a commitment to inclusion. The backlash was swift for the retail giant that for years profited from its support of black communities and black-owned brands. Widespread protests from church pastors and other community activists, including Bryant, erupted over Target's decision to end the workforce and supplier diversity programs. The DEI boycotts contributed to a sharp pullback in consumer spending in the first quarter of 2025. Why do we pick Target first? And the answer to that is, resoundingly, it is Target is the only one we invited to the cookout, Bryant said at a news conference March 11, announcing the boycott's end. Target turned away from its DEI commitment was not just an abandonment of DEI, we felt it as a betrayal to it. Bryant was not the first to call for a Target boycott. Armstrong, Mitty Cullors Doherty, co-founder of Black Lives Matter Minnesota, and Jalen Hussein, executive director of CARE Minnesota, launched a boycott last February over the retailer's DEI rollbacks and his commitment to spend more than $2 billion with black-owned businesses by the end of 2025. The Target boycott has now entered year 2. They have not made a single concession, have not made a single change to their policies, and they're staying the course on their plan to continue to deny diversity, equity, and inclusion in this company, Hussein said during a Minneapolis press conference. People's Union started a one-day economic blackout in February 2025 and held a series of boycotts against retailers, including Target, through much of 2025. But People's Union founder John Schwartz told USA Today on March 10th that he's not focused on individual corporate boycotts. We've already seen develop as something broader. People are becoming much more intentional about how and where they spend their money, Schwartz told USA Today. Corporations across the country have reeled back DEI programs to avoid inviting scrutiny from the White House. Diversity goals to boost the black workforce and leadership ranks have been tabled. Supplier diversity programs have been rebranded and no longer consider race or gender. The DEI retreat puts Target in a tricky position because of all of its vocal endorsements of DEI. Seizing on calls from shoppers for boycotts, Bryant launched his Target Fast on March 5, 2025, to coincide with the start of the Lenten season. Bryant told USA Today that he was trying to re-engage the black church, which had largely been outside of the political conversation. Bryant's boycott made 4 demands of Target. He asked Target to fulfill its commitment to invest $2 billion in black businesses, make deposits of $250 million in 23 black-owned banks, open 10 retail training centers at historically black colleges and universities, and reverse the January decision to end some of the company's DEI commitments. Bryant said Target made progress in 3 of 4 demands. The demand to make deposits to black-owned banks has not yet been fulfilled, and Bryant says his group has connected Target with black-owned banks, and he hopes they will cross the finish line. Target said it would soon fulfill the $2 billion commitment to black businesses. Bryant also said Target is committed to a pilot program with the HBCU to provide job readiness and internship programs, and that commitment will eventually expand to a total of 12 institutions. Will Target shoppers return? Well, more than 300,000 people signed the pledge on Target Fast website to boycott the retailer, according to Bryant. A group of protesters picketed a Washington, D.C. Target store every Saturday through the boycott to discourage people from shopping at Target. It remains to be seen if these shoppers will return. Increasingly, shoppers of all political stripes are collectively wielding their wallets to make their beliefs known at the cash register. The consumer boycotts have mixed track record. While conservative activists successfully put pressure on Target and other companies, many such efforts don't pack a big enough economic wallop. It takes 30 days to create a habit and a year out. The onus of that responsibility rests on the shoulders of Target and how it is they lure people back, Bryant told USA Today. A lot of people have figured out how to do life without them. The news conference in Washington, D.C., civil rights activists Tamika Mallory and Nina Turner found We Are Somebody said the boycott was ending, but the struggle was not. According to Mallory, Fidelki acknowledged the harm to black employees and customers from Target's DEI rollbacks during an internal company meeting, but has yet to take public responsibility. My mother would like an apology too, and she does not work for Target. So we sat across the table from the CEO and we asked Mr. Fidelki, when will you acknowledge the harm that's been caused to the black community outside of your employee meeting, she said. To date, that has not happened. So I guess, again, today, when will Target acknowledge the harm that's been caused to our community? In the meantime, black Americans will have to decide for themselves if they want to return to shopping at Target, Turner said. I'm not encouraging people to go back to shop at Target, she said. Ultimately, people have to make their own decision. But as for me and my house, we'll not be going back to Target.
You're listening to a reading of articles from USA Today for the 16th day of March on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after a short break. Your readers today are Tom Travers and
Tom Scanlon.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from USA Today. Your readers remain Tom Scanlon and,
Tom Travers.
as always, we turn to the sports section of USA Today. And our first article if I can find it here, is titled Arizona Men Rule Stacked Big 12. So this is a basketball article. Dateline, Kansas City, Missouri. Nothing seems to faze the Arizona men's basketball team. Toby Awaka picked up a third foul in the first half. No panic. Houston drew within striking distance with a 14-0 run. No panic. Senior guard Jaden Bradley left the game with a left wrist injury. No panic. The Wildcats were relentless in all phases and chalked up a 79-74 win March 14th over Houston in the championship game of the Phillips 66 Big 12 Championship Tournament. Arizona, with a record of 13-2, sure made its case to be the number one overall seed when the men's NCAA tournament bracket was unveiled. They'd won the regular season in the toughest conference and won the conference tournament as well, beating another team that's been in the top 10 all season. Arizona boasts 12 wins over ranked opponents, the first for a Division I program that's 38% of its win total. These seasons, you kind of break them down into your early preparation, summer work, fall work, then your non-conference games, and then your conference season, and then your conference tournament, Arizona coach Tommy Lloyd said. So every one of these is a little milestone along the way. We really wanted to win the Big 12 regular season championship. That was important to us. Then you come into the tournament, and a lot of people have a lot of opinions on how you should handle this. We felt our health was good, and you're always knocking on wood with that. Once you put up a bracket and your team is in a kind of a win-or-go-home tournament, I think the objective is simple. Let's see if we can win it game by game. Depth has been key for the Wildcats. Contributors who started the semifinal win over Iowa State are not the ones who factored most in the title game. Freshman standouts Braden Burries and Koa Pete combined for just 7 points in the dramatic 72-80 win over Iowa State 24 hours earlier, racked up 21 points each against Houston, becoming the first freshman to accomplish that feat in a title game. We had a great group of guys who wanted everybody to be successful, Pete said. Just making the right plays, making the right reads every time down the court. It's not going to be perfect, but just playing off each other, we're just flowing. Coach put a great offense in for us, so we just played together and hit the open man. Burries airballed his first 2 shots from the field. One would think that wasn't necessarily a confidence builder after an 0 for 7 from the field the night before. It was just another thing he and his team shrugged off. I think it's just having confidence and believing in the work you put in, Burries said. After the 2 air balls I shot, I came to the bench. Coach came to me. He said he still believed in me. I'm just thankful for that. Teammates came to me and still believed in me. With each shot, there are 2 options. Either you make it or you miss it, no matter how close you are, so just believe in that. Arizona led by as many 15 points twice, 51-36, 54-39. Houston, with a record of 28-6, which won the tournament a year ago and went on to finish as the Nationals runner-up, wasn't going down without a fight. Cougars trailed by only 2 at 62-60 with 6 minutes 23 seconds to go. In Arizona's next possession, Ivan Karachenikov banked in a 3-pointer from a strange angle, play that Houston coach Kevin Samuelson signaled out as the turning point. Arizona stretched its lead to 9, 73-64, with 2 minutes 43 seconds to go. Again, the Cougars rallied. Mercy Miller had a 3-pointer to pull the Cougars closer, 75-69. Bradley had a ball in the fast break moments later. Instead of pulling the ball out and running time off the clock, he raced in, only to miss the layup. Houston capitalized with Miles Uzan hitting a 3, and it was 75-72 with only 53 seconds left. Arizona restored order, though. Mo Kravis grabbed a rebound off a Pete miss and was fouled. Made both tries for a 77-72 lead, and the Wildcats hung on. Bradley was named Most Outstanding Player of the tournament. He had 13 points and 5 rebounds.
This next article is about auto racing. Antonelli earns his first F1 win in China. Shanghai. A tearful Kimi Antonelli celebrated a breakthrough first win of his Formula One career on March 15th after leading teammate George Russell in a Mercedes 1-2 in China from the pole position. The 19-year-old driver became the second youngest race winner in the sport's history after four-time world champion Max Verstappen, who took his first victory with Red Bull at 18 in 2016. Lewis Hamilton finished a distant third, the seven-time world champion's first podium since he joined Ferrari last year, and first since Las Vegas in 2024, with teammate Charles Leclerc, fourth after a lively battle between the two. McLaren's Lando Norris and teammate Oscar Piastri both failed to start due to problems with their vehicles. "Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. You made me achieve one of my dreams," said Antonelli over the radio after taking the checkered flag. "I'm speechless. I'm about to cry, to be honest," he said in his first interview as a winner in front of the Shanghai circuit crowd before doing just that, crying, that is. It was a nervous finish for the Italian, who locked up and went wide with 3 laps to go, cutting his lead over Russell to 7.4 seconds and finishing 5.515 clear. It was Mercedes' second successive 1-2 in Grand Prix after Russell led Antonelli in the Australian opener last weekend. Russell, who won the Saturday sprint with Antonelli fifth, saw his championship lead cut to 4 points from 11, with the Briton on 51 to Antonelli's 17, with Leclerc third on 34th and Hamilton 33. I gave myself up a little bit of a heart attack toward the end with the flat spot on his tires, said Antonelli, the first Italian winner since Giancarlo Fisichella for Renault in Malaysia in 2006. It was a good race. Norris had a problem, and it was detected well before the start of the Australian Piastri, who has yet to compete in a race lap this season after crashing on his way to the gold Melbourne, was wheeled off. "It's been quite a while since I've watched 2 Grand Prix on TV," he said. And that's about it for this article.
Okay. We turn now to professional golf and the LIV tournaments, not the PGA tournaments. DeChambeau victorious in LIV Singapore. Richard T. Lee had a putt to make LIV golf history, and Bryson DeChambeau is one of the ones who hoisted the trophy instead. Lee stared down a birdie putt on March 15th at Sentosa Golf Club in Singapore. It would have made him the league's first wildcard player to win an LIV event. Lee missed that putt, leaving about 2 feet, if not less, for par. He lined up the stroke, made a swipe, but the ball moved left, hit the side of the cup, and lipped out, ending up farther from the hole than it started. DeChambeau stared in disbelief, but he was a winner once again. It was a bit of a shock for sure, DeChambeau said. "I thought he was just going to knock it in, and okay, on we go." He'd been playing great golf. He's beat me numerous times throughout the season already when I've played with him. So he plays great golf, and he deserves to be out here. Honestly, he deserved to be on the team after this performance. It was a sour for sure to see him miss that. You never want to see that happen. I wanted to go another hole and have a chance to play great golf on that second playoff hole. Just unfortunately didn't go his way today, and that's just the way the cards sometimes fall. Although he didn't win, Lee earned more than $2 million with his finish, became the first LIV wildcard to finish in the top 10 of any event. But the short putt to extend the playoff is one thing that'll sting. Well, there's some slick putts out there, Lee said. Some little lies out there. This short putt, and I wanted to just hit it hard, and I hit it a little too hard. I think the adrenaline was pumping a little bit. Then again, I felt I had it this week. I played really well. Hopefully next week I can try again. The win is DeChambeau's first since LIV Gulf Korea last year. Shot a 5 under to get into the final round, tied with Lee at 14 under for the event, and then beat him with a par 5 on the 18th, the first playoff hole. Lee Westwood finished third, his second top 10 finish in 5 seasons on LIV Golf. Joaquin Niemann and John Rahm rounded out the top 5. In team competition, Dustin Offen's 4 aces won for the second week in a row. It's their 4th time in the podium in 4 events in 2026. LIV season continues this week as it heads to South Africa for its 3rd straight week of competition. It's the final LIV event before the Masters.
Yeah. Yes. What do we want to go to? C4? Well, here. See where we're way down. Cortina d'Ampezzo, Italy. 4 years ago, Noah Elliott's femur was sticking out of his amputated leg. He had pushed off surgery on a painful injury so he could compete in the Beijing Paralympics, but finished just off the podium and shy of a much-desired gold medal. Following a successful surgery, Elliott began focusing on the 2026 Paralympics in Milan Cortina, and he only needed 1 run in the banked slalom to find redemption. Already, with a silver earlier in the week during the snowboard cross, the 28-year-old earned a victory lap after the first run of 58.96, one of only 3 runs under the 1-minute mark. Oh my God, I'm feeling so good. This is exactly what we worked so hard for, Elliott said in between smiles. I've been working this whole time just to try to get up on that first podium spot, and to be here coming into the banked slalom. The other sub-1 minute time came from Japan's Daishi Oguri, who, in the penultimate run on the event, brought Elliott to the brink of 59.02, just 0.06 seconds behind the now redeemed American. The U.S. crowd celebrated, but there were no smiles yet from Elliott. In his mind, there was still work to be done. The final sub-1 minute time came in his victory lap from the American, 58.94, to beat his own time and make a statement to the entire field. He's one of the guys that you spend 5 minutes around him and you can just tell he is full of passion for the snowboarding. He's got a great attitude, teammate Zach Miller said. He's always super positive up at the top of the course, but when he gets down to it, he's a lethal competitor. Reaching the finish line with a smile on his face, teammate and bronze medalist Mike Schultz was the first to embrace Elliott, Right behind him was Oguri. Snowboard culture is competitive, but appreciating other racers allows the sport to continue to grow in a becoming and welcoming environment. Out of anyone to join Elliott in the podium, Schultz in the final event of the Paralympic career seemed poetic. Me and Mike met at the first World Cup and immediately hit it off. Just over the years, being able to pick his brain and question him, Elliott said, he was actually my first sponsor. Yeah.
This next article is on NFL football. 5 impact moves flying under the radar is the title. As the league officially beckons teams throughout the NFL have begun reshaping their rosters. The big names, at least by this year's free agency class standard, have by and large found new homes. But those aren't the players discussed here. Beyond each high-profile signing are dozens of smaller moves. Their importance in the matter of roster building and championship aspirations cannot be understated, which is why investing time in these under-the-radar signs is worthwhile. So here are some of those changes. Safety Kobe Bryant, Chicago Bears. The Bears led the league in takeaways and turnover differential last season, and they likely have to come close to mirroring that production in 2026 if they want to repeat of the success they experienced during the first year of Coach Ben Johnson's tenure. Enter Bryant, who had 4 interceptions in 3 of the seasons prior for the defending Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks last year. 26-year-old plays like a converted cornerback. Not a bad thing for a scheme that prioritizes turnovers. He can tackle. Safety Joaquin Brisker is likely on his way out, reportedly to Pittsburgh Steelers, but Bryant is a more than suitable replacement. Then we have offensive lineman Cade Mays to Detroit Lions. Remaking the offensive line has been a priority for Detroit General Manager Brad Holmes and head coach Dan Campbell. The unit never really recovered from retirement of Frank Ragnow. His replacement, Graham Glasgow, was released. Mays, age 26, was never in the same tier, nor did he demand the same investment as the top free agent at the position, Tyler Linderbaum, who signed with the Las Vegas Raiders. 6'6" former 6th-round pick by the Carolina Panthers can embody the smash-mouth style Campbell has hung his hat on as Detroit seeks to claw its way back into the playoffs in a stacked division. Addition of Mays also means the second-year lineman Tate Rutledge need not move over to center and can remain in his natural position. Then we have running back Kenneth Gainwell from the Tampa Bay Bucks. Maybe this is more implication for fantasy football fates, but in the NFC South, any signing can alter the entire NFL playoff picture. The Bucks clearly hit a wall on offense at the midpoint of last season. What better way to avoid a repeat than signing a back who can run through, around, and over any defender? Gainwell immediately becomes a reliable option for Baker Mayfield in the passing game. He led the Steelers in catches in 2025, in a large part thanks to Aaron Rodgers' preference to have the ball out quickly, and is no stranger to sharing the backfield, whether it's with Saquon Barkley in Philadelphia or Jaylen Warren in Pittsburgh. The common denominator for Gainwell is that he always made the most of his opportunities. Then we have punter Jordan Stout with the New York Giants. A handful of punters received nice paydays March 9th, but the biggest benefactor was Stout, whose 3-year, $12.3 million deal makes him the NFL's highest-paid punter. He, also along with tight end Elijah Likely, safety Darius Washington, will reunite head coach John Harbaugh as the former Baltimore Ravens contingent head coach. Contingent heads north in Interstate 95. Giants fans are hoping the offense under quarterback Jason Dart doesn't lead to too much punting, but having the 2025 first-team All-Pro doing the job is a significant upgrade over Jamie Gillen. Stout was second in net yards per punt at 44.9 and landing 45.3% inside the opponent's 20-yard line. Then we have edge rusher Boyd Mafe from the Cincinnati Bengals. One of the certainties heading into the offseason, it felt like, was that defensive end Trey Hendrickson would not be returning to the Bengals. That meant Cincinnati had to address its pass rush, because counting on Myles Murphy and 2025 first-rounder Shamar Stewart wasn't going to cut it for Cincy on the edge. Tapping into the defending champ's surplus of edge monsters is one solid idea. He recorded just 2.0 sacks in 2025. Mafe would have led the Bengals in pressures and hurries last season. The $20 million average per year payout for Mafe might seem like a lot, but the pass rusher tax will always inflate guys who go after the quarterback.
I am just a blank. Just any one that we haven't done yet.
Mm-hmm.
2. This next article is a women's All-Americans. Strong, Hidalgo, Blake's lead. 4 Power 4 conferences and many mid-major leagues. The college women's basketball regular season and conference tournaments are over, with a whole lot of games and data to reflect on. We can begin to determine who the best players in the world and nation were this season. 3 players were unanimous. First team choices for USA Today Sports 25-26, All-Americans. UConn sophomore forward Sarah Strong, Notre Dame junior guard Hannah Hidalgo, and Vanderbilt guard Michaela Blakes. Texas junior forward Madison Booker and UCLA's senior center Lauren Betts rounded out the first team choices. A total of 15 players received votes from USA Today Sports staffers: Heather Burns, Megan Hall, Sydney Henderson, and Mitchell Northam. 4 SEC players were selected to the first and second teams, while 2 more were honorable mentions. Here's who else made the cut and who got honorable mentions. First team All-Americans, Michaela Blakes, Vanderbilt, sophomore guard. Unanimously voted SEC Player of the Year by the USA Today. Network Blakes has powered Vanderbilt on a historic season. Behind Blake's 27 points per game, which leads the nation, the Commodores are likely to be a number 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. By picking up victories over Michigan, Texas, LSU, and Kentucky, Blakes joined Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Plum as the only players since 2009 to average at least 27 points, 4 assists, and 3 rebounds a game while shooting north of 45% from the floor. That's pretty good company for one of sports' rising stars. Then we're talking about some other people. Hidalgo from Notre Dame, who's a junior guard, now the 2-time ACC Player and Defensive Player of the Year. Hidalgo absolutely carried the shorthanded Fighting Irish this season on both ends of the floor. She's 3rd in the nation in scoring with 25.2 points per game and first in steals with 5.4. Hidalgo broke Notre Dame's single-season steals record and is 19 away from trying Christine Barr of Lomar's all-time mark for the NCAA record. Earlier this season, in a game against Akron, Hidalgo set the Irish's single-game scoring record with 44 points and broke the NCAA's single-game steals record with 16. In the NCAA tournament, Notre Dame will go as far as Hidalgo will go. Then there is Madison Brooker from Texas, who's a junior forward. Texas won the SEC Tournament Championship, and Vic Schaefer finally beat down Staley in a postseason game for the first time, and Booker was a big reason. The do-it-all forward scored a career-high 31 points in the Longhorns' semifinal victory over Ole Miss, and then piled up 18 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists in Texas' comfortable title game victory. Booker averaged 18.9 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 3.8 assists per game, and also ranks second nationally for the championship for the second straight season, leading the way.
Our final article is a long one. I don't think we're going to get to most of it, but let's see what we can get through here. It's on men's NCAA basketball tournament. Though the NCAA men's basketball tournament is designed to produce a national champion, it's just as effective at creating stars. The stakes and pressure of a single elimination tournament can turn once anonymous figures who spend much of their careers toiling in obscurity into celebrities in an instant, with the fame from their one shining moment staying with them long after they finish playing. It's not always players who are immortalized. There are coaches, but also unsuspecting fans, student managers, and even team chaplains. 2026 men's NCAA tournament will tip off on March 17th. And parenthetically, several of those games will be played here in Buffalo on Thursday, with 68 teams from across the country vying for a national championship, or if not that, the chance to be remembered forever in the sport. Over 3 weeks of games, buzzers will be beaten, Goliaths will be toppled, and cult heroes will be born. As we prepare for madness again, we look back at some of the biggest NCAA tournament legends over the past 30 years and what they're up to now. The first is Ali Farokhamachish. Back then, drained one of the biggest no-yes shots in NCAA tournament history, sinking a three-pointer earlier in the shot clock rather than bleeding it out with a 1-point lead, and 35 seconds remaining in Northern Ohio's 69-67 second-round win against number 1 overall seed Kansas in 2010. And now, after 11 seasons as an assistant at Nebraska, Drake, and Colorado State, the 37-year-old is in his first season as Colorado State's head coach. The Rams finished 21-12, losing the Mountain West quarterfinals. Then we have Chris Jenkins. Back then, Jenkins delivered the exclamation point for maybe the most thrilling end to a national championship game in NCAA tournament history, bearing a three-pointer as time expired to deliver Villanova a 77-74 victory over North Carolina in 2016. It's the Wildcats' first national title since 1985. And now, after a brief professional career overseas and in the G League, Jenkins returned to Villanova in February of 2020 as a student-athlete development role. Then we have Bryce Drew. And back then, Drew hit one of the most famous buzzer beaters ever in the NCAA tournament, sinking a three following a great play off a full-court heave to lift number 13 seed Valparaiso into a 70-69 upset over number 4 seed Ole Miss, 1998. He had 22 points in a second-round overtime win against Florida State, sending Valpo to its first and only Sweet 16 in program history. And now, after playing 6 seasons in the NBA, he returned to Valparaiso, where he coached under his father, Homer, before succeeding him as head coach in 2011. He spent 5 seasons at Valpo before moving to Vanderbilt, where he was fired after 3 seasons. He's in his 6th season as head coach at Grand Canyon, where he's gone 104-52. How about Kevin Pittsnagel? Back then, the 6'11" tattooed West Virginia native won the hearts of millions during the 2005 NCAA tournament, and he led his home state university all the way to the Elite Eight behind his rare blend of size and outsized shooting touch. as well as unforgettable last name that became a verb for fans across the country. He returned to the Mountaineers the following year, averaging nearly 20 points per game and earned All-American honors. Now he's bounced between jobs after a brief professional basketball career before earning his master's degrees in special education. He's currently a principal at North Middle School in his hometown of Martinsburg. We have D.J. Burns, who back then, no player embodied North Carolina State's stunning run to the 2024 Final Four as number 11 seed, more than the Burns, the 6'9", 275-pound forward, with a portly frame but immaculate footwork and touch around the basket. His March magic was highlighted by a 29-point performance against Duke in the Elite Eight, which sent the Wolfpack to their first Final Four since 1983. Now, despite his March Madness heroics, Burns went undrafted in 2014 by an NBA team. Played last season with the young Sono Skygunners in South Korea. He is now in his first season with Bnei Herzl in Israel. Gad Shammagod. Back then, with one of the most unforgettable names in college basketball history, Shammagod piloted a Providence team, made the Elite Eight as a number 10 seed in 1997. He's perhaps most known today for the Shammgod, a dribbling maneuver. Now Shammgod played professional basketball for 12 years, primarily overseas. He's in his final season as assistant coach with the Orlando Magic. He's previously an assistant with Dallas Mavericks from 2019 to 25. We have Jack Gohlke. Back then, only a year removed from playing Division III football, Gohlke led number 14 seed Oakland to a shocking 80-76 win over number 3 seed Kentucky in the first round of the 2024 NCAA tournament. Now Gohlke's been playing professionally since leaving Oakland and is currently in his final season with the Texas Legends, the G League affiliate of the Dallas Mavericks.
Can you get D2 up? Just the last. Okay, I pushed on that. Nothing's happening.
You're listening to a reading of an articles of USA Today and the Niagara Frontier radio reading service. The time is 33 minutes after the hour, which means we turn to the life story section.
Okay, this is a streaming preview. A-List cast tries to elevate Scarpetta to its level. What is Scarpetta? Kay Scarpetta is a person. Nicole Kidman and Dorothy Farinelli, Jamie Lee Curtis are very different sisters in Scarpetta. The tone of Scarpetta is set with the bodies, naked, bloody, trussed, and horrifying, the nauseating and disturbing display of the murder victims in Amazon's adaptation of author Patricia Cornwell's best-selling crime novels preview a series that will not be easy to stomach, nor will it be subtle or particularly artful. No amount of gore or ghastliness is off limits for the series. Produced by horror champions Blumhouse as Nicole Kidman's titular medical examiner pores over the remains of the few dead. These gratuitous images of the tortured and sexualized dead are among many signals that Scarpetta, Screaming March 11, is supposed to be serious and prestigious. Amazon nabbed Kidman to play the hero, Dr. Kay Scarpetta, for one thing, and her supporting cast includes Jamie Lee Curtis, Arlena DeVos, Bobby Cannavale, and Simone Baker, making the 3/5 of the core cast Oscar winners. The series, although on the streaming service, are known for adaptations of airport bookstore crime thrillers, clearly is inspiring to something more than your average crime drama. But not all of us get upset or get to achieve our goals. Serviceable but unremarkable Scarpetta has its murder, but not much else. The cast does its best, but the show is something of a slog to get through at times. Not sure if it's about serial killers, investigators, forensics, grief, or family. Going for all of the above as it does makes it scattered and convoluted, not deep or profound. If you want to follow the mystery to the end, Scarpetta will get you there, but I doubt anyone will learn anything along the way.
Our next article is a book review. Davis Patterson joined forces for Judge. Like many book lovers, James Patterson read and loved Viola Davis' 2022 memoir, Finding Me. But rather than wait to see if she'd write a new book, he decided to pursue one himself. He was successful. Judge Stone, the creative brainchild of the best-selling Patterson and EGOT winner Davis, is now out. The novel is an Alabama courtroom thriller about a ripped from the headlines trial involving 13-year-old rape victim and a doctor who gave her an illegal abortion. The case splits down the town, and center of the uproar is our protagonist, Judge Mary Stone. A pair of authors share a love of reading. Davis is a comfort reader, and currently diving back into the Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. Patterson recently loved The Correspondent by Virginia Evans. But they came from different creative fields, which ultimately made for an even stronger book, they agree. Patterson learned a lot about crafting dialogue from Davis, and Davis leaned on Patterson's plot instincts. And of course they had edits for each other. I appreciate James accepting some of the very, very, very small notes from me, Davis said, laughing. I'm like, James, can't we just have a shrimp cocktail sauce on the table? We got to have Crystal hot sauce on the table? Somewhere there's got to be hot sauce. Question: why was a courtroom drama the story you wanted to tell? Davis: James, what made the offer enticing was because I feel like he's a master of what he does, but also I just felt like it was a beautiful premise to create great characters, a pulsating thriller. Patterson's a very dramatic story in a courthouse in a small town, and the whole world winds up watching what happened. We're both big fans of To Kill a Mockingbird. What did you learn from each other while writing Judge Stone? And Patterson: for me, digging deeper, digging. With Hollywood, with movies, you have a lot of people. There's the studio and the manager and the agents and the other actors. It's just two of us. Our thing was just keep making this better and better. Davis. James knows what works. I like that. I don't always know what works. Sometimes I can be in my own world. I love character-driven stories, and so that was my big takeaway from this. He knows what works. Patterson, in addition to being a really good writer, and Viola did a lot of work in the book, she doesn't know what works in terms of scene. Our dialogue, especially with Nova, the 13-year-old, Davis would say, either she's saying too much or she's not saying enough. A lot of it needs to be interior with her character. How did it feel building a character on the page versus the screen? Davis, I don't think it's different. You build a human being, not a character. So you have to ask the big swing questions to figure out who they are. Or they ask you the question, which is, what do I live for? What makes me happy? What's getting in the way of making me happy? You build from there. For me, I build from my experience, as I felt like it was the wellspring of the foundation of art and life. What parts of yourself did you put into the characters? Davis, truth. I always felt like truth is the best advice to make to people leaning into the story, because people lean in when they feel connected. I don't care how fictitious the story is. Something about it just jumps out at the page, makes you feel like you're in the story. I used to do that with my little girl when I would pick up stories with her at night. Felt something very realistic in there, no matter how fantastical the story was. That's the whole purpose of reading, really. They may not be real, but for the time period that you're in that story, they feel real to you. Feel almost like you're looking at a part of yourself. I pulled on with me with Nova. I remember myself very clearly at 13. Some things I like to forget. This is fiction, but abortion is very real, a very hot-button political issue. Why'd you want to explore it before? Patterson. One of the interesting things here is that Judge Stone doesn't really come down on one side. She just conducts this discussion, which I think we need to do more of. Let's discuss this stuff. I have respect for people who honestly come to either side of it, as long as they come to it honestly, but then talk more. When we get into these really sticky situations, like a 13-year-old who's been raped, where do we go with that? The idea that in some states the doctor could get a life-ending sentence. Where do we go with that? Is there any fairness there? Let's talk about it, because we need to talk about it. We need to think about it. We need to discuss it. And this book will be, I believe, discussed all over the country and all over the world. What do you hope readers take away from this story? Davis, I'd like for them to have an honest conversation. There's something that happens in the sacred space of conversation. They can lead through connection, even if you disagree on something. Ultimately, what connection will lead to could be something monumental. Patterson, my time on the planet, I could be wrong on this, but I've never seen less open-mindedness. There was a time in Senate and Congress where these people would disagree and then go out for dinner together and talk about stuff. And it doesn't seem to be happening, and I think that's terrible. I think it's a terrible thing. Davis, artists in general should be disruptors. You're on this train of thought, you're on this train of life, and then somebody enters your life and wakes you up. Now, what that wake-up is absolutely dependent on the individual. If you have a whole lot of people who wake up and there's something beautiful that can happen there and happen in that space, whatever that beauty is a beauty we need right now. Can we expect more of Viola Davis fiction books in the future? Patterson, she does it with me, I'm good. If she's going to be competition, I don't like it. Davis, I would never be in competition, Mr. Patterson. But you know what I like about fiction? So you can make stuff up. You can go into imagination playgrounds, and I think that's where Viola lives. Little Viola lives there now. Adult Viola lives there because in the place you can be anywhere you want to be. There's no wrong choices.
This next article is titled Pfeiffer and Russell Share Secrets to Die For. This is by Brian Alexander. And the article starts out with Stacy Claiborne, who is Pfeiffer, she's mourning in the middle of a Montana river. And there's a warning here, spoilers alert, for the Madison. Ever since the trailer for the Madison dropped last month, it has been clear that tragedy strikes someone in the Taylor Sheridan-created modern-day series. But who? Michelle Pfeiffer and Kurt Russell, who play parents and grandparents, Stacy and Preston Claiborne, watched their words carefully ahead of the Paramount premiere of the first 3 episodes on March 14th. But during a joint USA Today interview, Pfeiffer, 67 years old, and Russell, 74, have license to spill secrets, that is. Quote, "I already gave away a big spoiler accidentally and will probably get fired," Pfeiffer said, before turning to Russell. Quote, "I'm actually surprised. People are surprised that you go..." Pfeiffer doesn't actually say the word die, but before the definitive dry throat sound she makes, eliciting a knowing laugh from Russell, is acknowledgement that Russell's Preston dies right off the bat in Madison Episode 1. That's a spoiler alert. Pfeiffer's surprise stems from the fact that it's pretty obvious Preston is tragically diseased and deceased from the trailer, which has Stacy weeping, talking about tragedy, and wearing her husband's weathered Sims fishing gear hat. Then there's a picture of the two of them in a field talking on better times. Russell says matriarch Stacy was the only character off the table of possible in Madison deaths in the strikingly emotional project from Yellowstone creator Sheridan. Other possible tragic victims include Preston's Montana, her loving brother Paul, in the Lost Album, Matthew Fox, the couple's divorced daughters, Abigail, Bo Garrett, and Paige, played by Ellie Chapman, and Paige's husband, Russell. Everybody else was on the table, says Russell, who agrees it's clear by trailer's end that it's Preston who is R.I.P., rest in peace. It smelled a lot like Kurt Russell is going to go in 5 minutes. Actually, it's 25 minutes into the opening episode that Preston and brother Paul die when their single-engine plane crashes into a mountainside during a freak storm while returning to the glorious Montana retreat that transplanted New Yorker Preston has built along the Madison River. It's an outdoorsman's death for the self-made business titan coming after a delirious fly fishing trip in a remote locale, and darkly romantic. Preston's last word when bracing for impact is "Stacy." Russell asked the director, Christiana Alexandra Voros, to make that final word crystal clear after watching an early episode cut with the real-life partner Goldie Hawn and his oldest son, Boston, with his ex-wife, Susan Hubley. Quote, "They had one comment. They asked, 'What does he say?' Russell says of the family reaction to Preston's last word, 'I thought, oops, that's not good, so I called Christina. I don't know what they did, but they fixed it.'" Russell was struck by the emotion in the Sheridan scripts and startled by how quickly Preston's death comes in episode 1. Quote, "I didn't expect it to happen so soon," Russell says. I thought, how is this love story going to work between two people when you killed Preston off in episode 1? Now, what happens in the Madison? The spousal death brings Madison Avenue Queen Stacy out of New York City with her urban-spoiled daughters and granddaughters. Stacy, in her grief, starts to follow her husband's life through his journals, adapting to Montana life and the rustic outdoor outhouse she had avoided for years. It's got a drop of green acres, but it's a drama and a tragedy, Pfeiffer says. Despite Preston being quite dead, Russell thrives in the memory-filled Madison through dreamy flashbacks, most of them in Montana splendor. These calls, often shot with Stacy soaking in a luxurious concrete bathtub in the couple's to-die-for Upper East Side penthouse, predominantly were filmed before Russell was officially cast, while trying to juggle his schedule with the Apple TV Plus series, Monarch Legacy of Monsters. Pfeiffer pictured Russell, her co-star in the 1988's Tequila Sunrise, on the other hand. I just imagined it was Kirk. He hasn't changed a bit since Tequila Sunrise, she says. Just don't look at any photographs, Russell says. The bubble-filled bathtub scene, one of which includes Preston while home, were not as glorious as they appeared on TV. You want that bathroom? You can have it, Russell says. That bathtub is so high, too high, you can't get the back of your head comfortable. There's no way of holding yourself up. You need a block of wood. It's actually a horrible bathtub. The TV drama is delicious for three-time Oscar nominee Pfeiffer, who hears the devastating news at a swanky New York City restaurant in front of well-heeled diners. There's one or two scenes that you dread on any project, says Pfeiffer, who says she tried to persuade Sheridan to have Stacy take the call outdoors. I said, what if I just run out of the restaurant? And he said, no, you stay right here. Pfeiffer, who lives just outside L.A. in Pacific Palisades with her husband of more than 3 decades, producer David Kelly, says she came to understand the obvious appeal of Montana while shooting the 6 episodes of Seasonland, the upcoming season 2 of the Madison. But she wouldn't necessarily move permanently if you had to, Russell said. If you had to, yeah, this is the last paragraph. Pfeiffer says, it's just the most beautiful landscape that I've ever seen, and they call it Big Sky for a reason. But I don't think I could leave her full-time. Maybe small bits of time here and there. And that's the end of the...
Anybody out there listening, is this your birthday today? Here's some people who share that birth date. Guitarist Michael Owen Bruce from Alice Cooper's original band turns 78. Actor Eric Estrada, 77. Singer Nancy Wilson from Heart, 72. Rapper-actor Flavor Flav from Public Enemy is 67. Guitarist Steve Marker from Garbage is 67. Singer Patty Griffin, 62. And director Gore Verbinski is 62. Violinist, pianist Tracy Bonham, 59. And actor Lauren Graham, 59. Actor, comedian Judah Friedlander is 57. Actor Alan Tudyk is 55. Model actor Sienna Guillory is 51. Singer Blue Cantrell is 50. Musician Wolfgang Van Halen is 35. You've been listening to a reading of USA Today for the 16th day of March. We read USA Today weekly at noon. For more information, call us at 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been Tom Scanlon and
Tom Travers.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dashes tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dashes tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dashes tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability.